So in this video, we're going to look at a few applications of exponents, and the first one is squares. And on your calculator, you should see a button that will look something like this that helps you to square a number without using the exponent button. So all it really means is taking a number and timesing it by itself. So 4 squared is 16, 6 squared is 36, 9 squared is 81. All of these answers are called perfect squares. So 16 is a perfect square, 36 is a perfect square, 81 is a perfect square. And these are whole numbers that are created when you multiply another whole number by itself. So let's look at what the first 12 perfect squares are. So 1 squared, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 squared, 4. 3 squared, 9. 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared, 64. So all of these numbers, 9 squared is 81, can form what we would call, as I said, a perfect square. So they form a square. So 81 would be a square with side lengths of a square with an area of 81, and each side length of the square would be 9. 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, and 12 squared is 144. And we could keep going. So these are very special numbers in math called perfect squares. Now the opposite of squaring is square rooting. So just like the opposite of adding is subtracting and the opposite of multiplying is dividing, the opposite of squaring something is square rooting it. And you're going to be looking on your calculator for a button that looks something like that. It might have a letter in it. So it might look like that, but that's what you're looking for, and that's called the square root symbol. So if we use our calculator to find what is the square root of 36, we get 6. What is the square root of 121? We get 11. Anytime we are finding the square root of a perfect square, we will get a whole number answer. So anytime our answer is a whole number, that meant that the original was a perfect square. When we find the square root of a number like this one that isn't a whole number answer, so we get 7.07 blah, 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 we'll round to the nearest tenth unless it says otherwise. These are not perfect squares then. So 50 would not be a perfect square. And in fact, we actually would call these numbers, there's a special name called irrational numbers. And this last one we round to 27.7. So these numbers here, the perfect squares, when we square root them, we get a whole number answer. They're called rational numbers. When we square root numbers that aren't perfect squares and we get a decimal, we actually call these numbers irrational numbers.